Hi, and welcome to the Bookish Stitcher podcast. My name is Jeanette. You can find me on Ravelry, Instagram, and Goodreads as Bookish Stitcher, all one word. I hope you guys have had an amazing 2 weeks since I last podcasted. This is probably going to become a normal thing for me to where I'm recording on Mondays during my run home during lunch break and record a podcast as opposed to recording on Sundays because it has just become so busy with the weekends with kids stuff and friend stuff, and my best friend who I talked about a while ago had moved to Chile. They are back for a little while because, as you might know, it is the summer in the southern hemisphere right now, and she does not do well with hot climates, and they don't have air conditioning in their house there. And so she flew back up here to visit family and friends and get some cold weather. So they're thinking about maybe making this a thing that they do often, which would be great because I've missed her so much. But they came down and spent a long weekend with us, and it was just wonderful. So yeah, and it's just been great. So my kids had fun, and I had fun, and my husband got to hang out, and we played board games, and we just lots of fun. So I'm excited to share with you guys what all I have done. The first thing, let me take a drink of I just have some sparkling water today, although it is fairly cold outside. It's at that stage of winter here in Texas where it starts out really cold or fairly cold in the mornings, and then it warms up to I guess perfect at midday where it's 60s Fahrenheit. But yeah, a little Scandinavian style mug that I actually got on Knitpicks. But my first finished object that I have is a hat that I did out of some scraps, and this is going to be part of a stack of hats for the homeless that I'm going to be knitting this year. And so I just used 3 different scraps that I had, and I love how you have this black with this darker gray, and it's kind of subtle. I don't know how well you can see it, but it's just a nice hat, and it's knit out of acrylics that should be wonderful for, just being able to be tossed around a bunch. And then it's kind of really windy outside, so if you hear any background stuff flying across, you'll know why. And then the next thing I finished, I can do it, I can succeed, is my Desert Vista Dye Work socks. And these are my January socks, and there are 2 of them. I'm so excited that I made the deadline, and not only did I make it, but I made it early. So these were done a couple days ago, and they are done out of the colorway Zombody. It's cold outside, and my son has claimed them. They were going to be for me because I love this colorway and I've wanted socks out of it for a while. But the funny thing is my cat is sneezing behind the camera. The funny thing is he and I now have almost interchangeable sizes with our feet. So for a little while, his and my sock drawer will be the same. We can share, and then I know he'll outgrow me at some point and need his bigger size socks. But those are my 2 finished objects for this week. And next on to my works in progress. Let me see. I will first show you, since I had finished the giant Garter Goodness shawl, I went to my whips bin, my area where I keep my whips, and I thought, okay, which do I want to pull out next to work on and finish up? So I decided to pick another shawl because they're really great knitting, and this one is called My Kryptonite by Melanie Berg, and I wouldn't call it kryptonite. I feel like kryptonite is the wrong word for it, but it's like my addiction or something because it is very addictive, and I can't wait till I'm done recording this podcast and it's later on in the day so I can sit and watch a Japanese film with my husband and knit on this because it's just so much fun. So I actually started this last April, I believe, and when I was doing a Melanie Berg kind of knit along with myself, and this is a Tangerine Designs, a bucket bag. It's really for spinning because it has silk lining in it, but I have all 3 colors in here, so it's just a green, and this is Stunning String Studio, a pink, and then just a white, which is down there. I'm not going to grab it, and I'm using a stitch marker that my sweet friend Amy Loris gave to me at SSK Retreat, and it's just so cute. And so this is what it looks like so far. You have panels of garter stitch and then slip stitches with interspersing of different colors, and then you have a lace, and I'm ready to do some more lace on this. So I had actually been about right here before the first lace panel, And I realized that don't ever start a new pattern that you don't know what you're doing at 2 a.m. because I had started this shawl when I was at the FW Fiber Fest, and it was like 2 a.m. and I was hanging out in the area where the people who host the whole festival had like a suite where they were hanging out and, you know, having snacks and goodies and stuff. And so I tried to start it then, and I realized looking at it and looking at the pattern that I had been doing the spinal decrease completely wrong. And so I just ripped the whole thing out when I started it new like a week and a half ago, and then started the whole thing, and I've gotten back up to here. So that has been my knitting. And then on my whip, and then the next thing I have to show you is in a bag that my Japanese teacher really kindly made for me. I've been doing Japanese lessons for a little while now, and it's so much fun because I can now watch anime and, you know, Japanese films and know what they're saying, and it's just wonderful. And I've been working recently with my Japanese teacher. When I first started doing it, I used all romanji because the Japanese writing has 4 different writing systems. So they have romanji, which is like typically, little Japanese lesson here, typically what you would see English letters used to represent Japanese sounds so that we can read them. And then they have katakana, which I learned first, my first like official like symbols that weren't Roman letters. And that is used for loan words, words that they've taken from other languages, like the word gray, which is the color gray, but it's gray, and that is a loan word, so it is written in katakana. But then I mastered the katakana alphabet, and now I've been learning hiragana, which is what most of the writing is done in, and it's kind of what they teach children first. And so I've been learning that, and then the next thing that I will learn, which I'm a little bit terrified of, is kanji, because it has so many brush strokes in each symbol, and it's a little bit mystifying to me, but I'm not there yet. So we're hoping to actually go to Japan in like 2 or 3 years, and it'll be my first like overseas flight. And so I'm hoping to be fluent by then and like to be able to read and stuff. That's why I've been going through the reading system, and my Japanese teacher will, you know, give me videos to watch that are in Japanese, and I will watch them and she'll ask me questions about them so I can kind of learn how to translate stuff. But it's been a lot of fun, and she's so sweet. She made a kimono out of this, and of this fabric, and it's beautiful, and she always wears these beautiful kimonos, and I wish that I could wear, I probably could wear them, but it would probably I would look a little odd walking through my neighborhood in a kimono. But she had leftover fabric, and so she made me a bag, and it has chocho, which is butterfly in Japanese. And so in here, I have my son's sweater. And so I finished, last time you saw it, I was still working on the body of it. I have finished the body. And the neckline is up here. Just making sure I have everything correctly placed before I show it to you. It's the neckline. I finished the body, and I did the ribbing, and then I have started on the sleeves. And now I don't have enough of this, my yarn, Open Skies in the Titanic worsted colorway, to do full sleeves. So I took a yarn scale and I split the yarn into 2 different, one was just a cake, I'm using my marbles, and then the other in a ball, and then I'm gonna use it till it runs out. And then I got just some light heathered gray Cascade 220 to finish off the sleeves and do a hood for him. So he's excited. I had him try on the body, and it fits really well. And it's just nice to, this is almost done. Well, you know, I always like, I don't know why, projects always start lingering when it comes time for the sleeves. So I'm very proud of myself for just starting on the sleeves right away on this. So I was like, nope. It's kind of been my motto recently, is like, don't put off doing something just because you won't like it. Like, if you know how to do it, do it. So the next thing I have is a brand new project, and it is in a bag that my sweet friend Lori, who is Love Pretty Yarn, gave me. It's a Bink Waffle owl bag, and I just realized I have 2 owl bags. But in here is actually a chemo cap that I am knitting out of a skein of Spartacus dyes, and it's a woolly wormhead pattern. And this, I just realized, is actually a woolly wormhead pattern too. This is the Quinn, I believe, and it's knit out of some of my hand spun, Moon Rover hand spun that I did in a gradient of the colors to keep, I applied it so that the colors all stayed together. But this pattern is done really neatly. I realize just now I'm in the middle of the road, didn't plan for that too well, but this is Spartacus dyes in the Rocketeer colorway, I believe. It's grays and lime green and purple and pink. And the chemo cap that I chose to do is called Rocketeer, and it is by, like I said, woolly wormhead, and it's done through this interesting short rows, and the pattern has you provisional cast on, and I was like, oh no, sorry, my cat's attacking my feet right now. Or the kitten. The big cat is pretty chill, and he's just like the gentlest giant. The little cat will like bite you till you bleed. The little kitten. And then he'll collapse on you and fall asleep and be so cute, and you can't get mad at him. But so it needed a provisional cast on. I was like, oh, I started looking for other patterns. I started like thinking, oh, well, maybe I won't do this. And then I was like, just do it. Just do it. Just like with the sleeves, just start it. You know how to provisional cast on. You don't even have to go, I don't even have to like go to YouTube and refresh. I know how to do it. I have a crochet hook, everything I need. Just do it. Stop being a wuss, Jeanette, because this is really ridiculous. You've been knitting for over a decade and you're like, oh, provisional cast. Like, it's so funny how I just like certain things, I'm like, oh. And it took me, what, 10 minutes maybe? I don't know. It took a little while because it, of course, takes longer to do a provisional cast on than a standard knit on cast on, but it doesn't take any longer than some others. So this pattern is looking great in this yarn because it is a garter stitch, just knitting front and back. It really helps to break up the variegated yarn in a beautiful way. So yeah, it should be done soon. And then once I get to the end, I just, you know, attach the end to this part. And my husband actually told me that he would really like to knit some chemo caps or homeless caps or preemie caps this year because he's been doing that Doctor Who scarf, not really like a row a month, for years. So he's like, I don't know if I'll ever finish that, so maybe I'll just turn the yarn into chemo caps. So that will be for that, and that's also part of my challenge to use up some of my older yarns, and that's one of my oldest yarns. I took out all the yarns that I want to use up for the oldest, like, I think 25, and put them in a bin. So it's all there, and I just can go and pull out when I, you know, finish up the project. And then at the end of the year, if there's any left in there and I haven't used them up, I have to take it to the knitting group and be like, here, does anybody want these? So it's good motivation. But yeah, that's all the projects that I have right now. And I'm thinking about the Ravellenic Winter Olympics thing that's coming up. I believe the Olympics start, and they're in South Korea, and they start on February 9th, which is a Friday. And I was saying that I wanted to do the whip thing, and I would love to know if you're going to do it, what, you know, when you're going to do. But I think I'm going to go onto my hibernating page on Ravelry and on my projects page and pick the 5 projects that are closest to being done and just like kind of snowball them to where I start with the smallest one that is closest to being done and then gather momentum and hopefully get a whole bunch done. And that would be really exciting for me because if I manage to get 5 of those, I think I have under 20 hibernating whips, which I know is bad. I know I used to like a little over a year ago, I only had 3 whips ever at a time, and now somehow it's just spiraled out of control. I don't know, but so I'm gonna try to get it back down this year, and since one of my goals, get the yarn back down, do the Desert Vista Dye Works sock club, and then use up my older yarn. But so I'm gonna go and get that and then watch the Olympics and knit on things. I know I have a couple that are fairly close to being done, or a couple that, you know, the whole project is under 400 yards. So I'm gonna try to total up how many yards it ends up being because it'll be so many different projects. And I will still, of course, be knitting on the Desert Vista Dye Works socks for in February too. So I've gotta manage all that. But I'm excited because I love the Olympics so much, and we, you know, just sit there as a family, and it's like, it's good family time. My daughter, when it was the Summer Olympics a while ago and there was swimming, we love Ledecky, and so she would jump up and down and scream, "Go Ledecky!" And so it's very cute. And so I'm excited to introduce her to the winter ones because she was not old enough at the last winter one. She would have been almost 2. So it's going to be exciting to introduce her to figure skating because I'm all about that. But yeah, that's going to be so much fun, and I'm just excited. So I also have something else I wanted to share with you guys. I got a wonderful gift in the mail from Knitting Samurai, Steph, and she has opened up a new little stitch marker store. And so she sent me a little thing that she saw that reminded her of me and then a giveaway one. So I just wanted to show them to you guys. And I'm gonna throw in some extra goodies like yarn and stuff in there with this. But she sent me a lovely little note, and it's just so sweet. She is just one of those people, like, I love hearing her laugh, and she gets very excited about projects that she's working on and stuff. So she was like one of my first knitting inspirations. Steph, you're awesome. And so this is really cool. And I am not on Instagram enough to like have seen all the ones that she's put out, but I do know she's done some movie themed ones like Frozen, I think, and just maybe there's some football themed ones, but I know she has a bunch of different themes. So they came in this cute little gauze bag, and then there's one for me and one for you guys, and they are matrushka. And yeah, it's yellow blue matrushka, which is I like matrushka. But yeah, it's just funny because I was talking earlier about the Japanese alphabet. I never thought that I'd be able to learn it because I remember when I first started learning a while ago the Russian alphabet, and I wanted to poke my own eyes out. I was like, I'm never gonna get this, because for so long I had taken Spanish in high school, and my best friend, her family only spoke Spanish, and then I had minored in French in college, and with Latin or with Italian and German and all these like languages, they all have letters that are familiar to me and my brain. But then when I first started learning Russian, and I had this love of Russian, so I knew I really wanted to learn it, but the alphabet is so different from my standard, what I was used to, that I thought I would never ever get it. And it took so long, and probably if you asked me on a certain day, like, what letter is this, I could probably even still get it wrong, because the thing I found with having so many foreign languages in my brain is that I can't switch very quickly. I have to be in a mood and maybe like watch a film or even a short little clip in that language to kind of get my brain in that gear, because it just, yeah, I remember learning Russian very distinctly and thinking I would never get it. And perhaps because my brain has now been able to switch gears into a symbol can be a letter, or can make a letter sound, that now the Japanese, the hiragana isn't as hard as it would have been. So thank you, Russian. But yeah, matrushka. And they have little no snag stitch markers with them. The matrushka is I don't know how to say this in Russian, but it's like a clip. It's a clip-on. And it's funny because when I started learning Russian, I kind of knit, but not a ton. So a lot of my languages, other than Japanese or English, I don't know a lot of knitting terminology. I did start watching like French knitting podcasts just so I could kind of try to learn some of the terminology, but I've forgotten what I learned. It's hard to remember everything. I heard an analogy once of learning a new language is like carrying a basket into the forest and gathering a whole bunch of mushrooms, and you have like dozens and dozens of mushrooms, and then you come out and realize that you've had a hole in your basket the whole time, and now you only have 4 mushrooms. So it's like that. You can go in to a lesson and learn like 20 new words and come out with 3 that your brain has decided to latch onto. So it's just lots of repetition. But all this to say, there will be a prize thread up in the group for these stitch markers, and the Steph's store is Steph's Adore Knit. That was probably thing I forgot to say. And she has this little, I don't think there's anything on here that she wouldn't want people to see. So hopefully you saw all that, and I tried to show the card, and then the coupon code, I'll read it again just in case you didn't see it on the screen, was 20% off with the code BOOKISH, and it has a capital B, but I don't know if that's important, but try it. And the rest are just lowercase, and it's through April 4th of this year, I'm assuming. So go over there and check out. She has really cute little ideas, and she's so fun, and she's such a sweet person. So I would definitely recommend going and like supporting her, because she's just awesome. So thank you so much, Steph. And then that is all for the knitting stuff, I believe. So let's get in. I'm gonna get a sip of my sparkling water and then get into the book. I lied, books, because since it's a couple weeks between and I listen to a lot of audiobooks and stuff, so I'm gonna like probably try most times, unless there's ones that I don't feel appropriate recommending, or not appropriate, but like don't feel they were good enough to recommend or whatnot. But I like to do two because I read a very wide berth of different genres, except romance. And so I like to recommend those to you. So the first one I'm going to recommend is one that I had on my list for a while. And it's kind of, I feel, like a book that is very well known, but you might not have read it. The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien. And it is a story, and it was in fiction, but I feel like a lot of it is, he talks a lot about what is truth and what is stories in here, because as I can't even imagine going through a war, things would meld in your mind and memories would become kind of fluid, and things would mean different to different people, and different people would experience things differently. And he talks a lot about how Vietnam had kind of this mystical component to it, so you would think that you heard stuff in the night or see stuff, and so it's just very interesting. But the way he starts off this book is brilliant, and I loved it so much. I was reading parts to my husband, but he starts off saying the things they carried. The things they carried were largely determined by necessity. Among the necessities or near necessities were P38 can openers, pocket knives, heat tabs, wristwatch, dog tags, mosquito repellent, and he just goes off to list these, but then he'll be like, Henry Dobbins, who was a big man, carried extra rations. He was especially fond of canned peaches and heavy syrup over a pound cake. Dave Johnson, who practiced field hygiene, carried a toothbrush, dental floss, and several hotel-sized bars of soap. And it just go. Ted Lavender, who was scared, carried tranquilizers until he was shot in the head outside of a village. Like, it does like these lists, but then it will go from the lists into stories that pertain to the list. And it was, like they said, that he carried tranquilizers until he was shot. That is a story in it, and it's just, it was so good. It was very short, but took me a while to read just because I was enjoying it so much, and I just kind of wanted to take my time. It's only 233 pages, and of that, like, there are lots of sections that it's not heavy text, right? But I just really enjoyed this, and I'm so glad that I finally got around to reading it, because it was written a while ago, and I am trying to read all my old TBR, like the oldest books that I'd put on my Goodreads. So that is The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien. And this apparently is the year of me learning about Vietnam. I have never been, I read to read fiction or historical fiction about World War I, World War II, but I've never been like a person to do in-depth studies of wars. And so I am actually reading right now an over 800-page book on the history and the culmination of what led to the Vietnam War, and it's in-depth historical research, crazy. Like, I will come out of this being a lot more expert on the Vietnam War than most people. And I don't know what led me to put this on. It's another one of my older list things. I must have been thinking a lot about Vietnam or wars at the time when I put this on my list in 2014, but it's very in-depth, but it's history, so I love learning any history things. So it's just, yeah, it's gonna know a lot. And this is Vietnam. There's another book that I'm reading this year. It's on my list. It's gonna be Vietnam based. I know there are a couple coming out this year, that have their historical vantage point from the Vietnam War. So it may just be a thing that's trending in literature now that I anticipated the trend in 2014 and am now getting around to it. I don't know. And the next book I have to recommend to you was a book that I read on audio, or I listened to on audiobook. And it is called Silence for the Dead, and it is by Simone St. James. So this is the cover, as you could kind of see. It's about a house on a hill that's kind of spooky and creepy. And so the premise is that there are these men who come back from World War I, and they have come back with different neuroses or mental instabilities. At the time they called them insane, right? And so, because this is a private care facility, all of the patients in this area, in this house, are wealthy, but the house has a secret past, and it's crumbling around it, and it's decaying, and the house is showing the madness. The outside of the house is decaying from the madness from within, from this secret history of the past. And unbeknownst to her, coming into this whole situation, is this young woman, and she is just basically on the run from a horrendous father. And she keeps kind of assuming different identities and kind of gliding into that, not killing the person or anything, but like applying to work as this person or something, or applying to work, like she'll overhear in a coffee shop, oh, my daughter got offered a job at this factory, but she's not going to take it because she's going to go get married. And so she will go to the factory and pretend to be this person who wasn't going to take the job, and try to like weasel her, she's not mean, but like get her way in there. And so she eventually ends up at this house claiming she's a nurse, even though she isn't. And throughout the events of the time there, she comes to discover the mystery, and helps with some of the other patients and stuff to uncover. And it was a great audiobook. It was creepy. It was all I could have asked for. It wasn't life-changing, but for what it was a brilliant book. And I love, like I said, historical fiction set in different time periods, and this is a World War I, which is nice. And basically you put the word asylum in anything, and I'm there for the creepy asylum, haunted house, I'm there. And so this was definitely a book that, and again, it was one of my books from my 2014 TBR that I put on there. So I'm getting through all these older books, and they're actually really enjoyable books that I am loving. So if you've had a book, I would encourage you that you like have been wanting to read for a while, but you've been putting it off, pick it up and read it, because you know it's going to be great. Hopefully, don't hold me to that. If it's not great, I'm sorry. But yeah, that's everything I have this week, and I'm going to go have my lunch, and then hopefully edit this and get this to you guys soon. But until next time, I hope you have a wonderful couple weeks and you get to do all the things you love. And if you're doing Ravellenic Olympics, I'm excited to see, I'll put up a thread in the group and you can show what you're working on, and I'm excited to show you the progress that I've made. Okay, bye everyone.